It's a fine thing to have ability, but the ability to discover ability in others is the true test. Boy, there's something that should be on every manager's wall. And I did spend 10 years of my life, as you heard, flying supersonic fighters. And the airplane I flew was a big fighter. It was 70 feet long, 22.5 tons, flew at a little over 1,200 miles an hour, developed 79,000 horsepower. What's 79,000 horsepower? 3 times the total horsepower in the Indianapolis 500, or another way of looking at it, 273 Porsche 911s. It would go from sea level to 35,000 feet in 1 minute and 32 seconds, so it climbed almost straight up for 7 miles. It took me 10 years to figure out that the Air Force wasn't going to use any of those wonderful suggestions that I'd made to them on how they could really improve their organization. So I thought, boy, I'm going to shape up the Air Force, and I sent in my resignation knowing that would really do the trick. And they signed it. And I was a civilian overnight trying to figure out what I was going to do the rest of my life. So I headed out for the West Coast to fly with the airlines, knowing they'd be ecstatic to get a hold of the hottest thing in the skies. Wrong. They loved me as long as I was talking to them on the phone. They said, my gosh, 2,400 hours of high-performance fighter time, test pilot, air show pilot, never had an accident? I said, that's it. They said, man, you're the kind of guy we're looking for. We're gonna mail you an application. Well, I'd already found out that I had a problem as far as the airlines were concerned, and perhaps some of you have already figured out what that problem is. I said, before you waste a stamp, what are the height requirements for flying with your airline? And they said, 5 feet 8. I said, what a coincidence. That happens to be my goal. A goal I'm obviously still working on, and they wouldn't hire me. I was going to form an anti-discrimination group. I was going to call it SPOT, which stood for Short People on Top. And I've got applications for several of you I've already spotted here today because I look for you all in crowds. I tried my best to convince them I wasn't short, I just wound tight, but they said, no way, you are not flying with this airline. Well, you heard I was known throughout the Air Force as the Sonic Boom Salesman because it had been my job not only to knock off way more than my share of plaster, break out way more than my share of windows, but then after that, I got to go out and explain to these upset, hostile civilian audiences why these sonic booms were good for them. You may think that you have sold a product somewhere in the past with a high objection factor to it. Try one of those sometime. So I joined this big sales company. Sold for a year. At the end of the year, the company came to me and said, you got a year of selling under your belt. We'd now like for you to be...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?